Welcome to the Parks and Recreational Advisory Board meeting for Monday, May 12th, 2025. The City of Gladstone is abiding by guidelines set forth in House Bill 2560, which requires the governing body of the public body to extent reasonably possible to make all meetings accessible remotely through technological means and provide opportunity for members of the general public to remotely submit oral and written testimony during meetings to the extent in-person oral and written testimony is allowed. Therefore, this meeting will be open to the public both in person and virtually using the Zoom platform. Kristen, are you able to call the roll?
Yes. Kate Cornelius.
Here.
Kim Agramson.
Here.
Eric Butler.
Here.
Nancy Turner.
Here.
Bruce Hildreth.
Here.
Ian Moore. Oh.
Here.
Justice Mills.
Here.
Thank you, Kristen. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from April 14th, 2025. Were there any corrections or questions or concerns from that?
I move that we approve. This is Kate.
Okay, do I have a second?
Bruce Hildreth, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kate Cornelius and seconded by Bruce Hildreth to approve the minutes as they are written. Can you call the roll, please, Kristen?
Kate Cornelius.
Yes.
Kim Agramson.
Yes.
Eric Butler.
Yes.
Nancy Turner.
Yes.
Bruce Hildreth.
Yes.
Justice Mills.
Yes.
Ian Moore.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Our first order of business is from the staff.
Thank you. This is Silas with Public Works. I've got a few things on the agenda. The first is the regular maintenance updates. Quite a bit of it is captured in the report. I think the highlights since our last meeting is we've been busy with softball and baseball field prep. There's been active games going on and we're taking care of that field prep. Regular mowing is going on at all of our sports fields and as well as parks. So spring has definitely sprung. We have also taken care of some boat dock cleanup following kind of a river level recession that usually happens this time of year. But other than that, it's pretty routine. We are in the middle of hiring seasonals, working towards trying to get 3 people on board for a 6-month seasonal temporary stint. So that will be good help to get on board with that for us. And that's pretty much it for the maintenance updates. Pretty par for the course, I'd say, this time of year. But I think most of it's just been regular landscaping, edging, mowing, and taking care of ball fields and all the other calls that come in. So next item of business was something that Nancy and I discussed about hazardous tree removal and replanting of trees. So the City of Gladstone Parks officially only has one hazard tree assessment report, and that's for the Gladstone Nature Park. It's a formal report that I believe was done a few years back, and it's got a pretty good map where different areas of trees have been recognized as being hazardous. We do also do at least, I'd say, an annual inspection. If not twice a year, we'll go out with a certified arborist and evaluate our trees. As far as removal, we also kind of key in off of calls that come in if something's leaning or somebody has a concern, a user group has a concern, we'll go out and do an assessment and remove the trees. Planting, sometimes we replant, not all the time. Most recently, we did replant a couple trees for some that were taken out, but we don't really have anything formal in writing. We just kind of take it case by case as it comes in. So I don't know if anybody else had any more specific questions with that.
Silas, this is Bruce Hildreth. I know Scott with the parks, he walked through the nature park and put big orange X's. I helped him identify some of those trees, even though they're mapped.
Mm-hmm.
And that was several weeks ago.
Yep.
And it was even before there was a lot of overgrowth, and he marked a pathway to get to one of the trees. So none of them have been, they were just going to have them fallen right there and leave them.
Yeah,
And none of them have been attended to. So,
it's still on our to-do. We had an arborist go out and look at it, so
okay.
we've got it on our to-do list.
I'm just curious because
Yeah.
they are falling.
Yeah. And those are areas that are recognized in the tree assessment report
Yeah.
for the nature park as well.
Okay,
So,
good. Thank you.
Ian, you had some questions about that. Is this a good time for him
Sure.
to bring those up?
I'll do my best to answer.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Ian. Something I've wondered about is if it's possible for trees that are dead to cut most of the main branches off, but leave the trunk and a lot of the main body standing. We have amazing birds out here in Gladstone because we have so many mature oak trees and other mature trees. But one lack I've noticed is a lot of cavity nesters who need big dead standing trees. And most of those get cleared away because they're safety hazards, and that's eminently reasonable. And I'm wondering if, as we go forward, if it's possible to try and ID some trees that are dead but solid enough they're not at risk of falling for a long time that we could leave to allow them to be part of that natural cycle.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can definitely look into. I think the challenge there is that sometimes you have to have somebody that might be able to climb to top the tree and then leave, somewhat of like a 20-foot piece. But yeah, we can definitely assess those. I think for us, though, if they're really close to a pathway or a sports field, unfortunately, it's probably just a better to totally take it down and then replant. But we can definitely evaluate that as we go through the cycle, for sure.
Thank you. I know safety has to come
Yeah.
first. Another thing I've thought of is we have amazing mature oaks in Max Patterson and a couple of our bigger parks, and a lot of those trees grow a lot better if they have a chance to grow in an understory. And I'm wondering if we want to think about possibly in some of our strategic planning documents of planting the next generation of shade trees for those parks. And letting them grow really slow so they'll be nice and solid instead of waiting until some of the bigger ones fall.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely look at in our master plans as we get closer to developing those. And, again, I think it's the use of the park right now, having that turf area to be able to kind of lounge and picnic and have that open area. But, and I'm not an expert in trees, so I'm taking your word for it. And it's something we can definitely look into as we develop that in the future for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. So let's see, next item. Lost my place, sorry. I believe. Reservations, update on reservations, thank you. So the reservation link is live on the website. We've had a couple double bookings. The first week, I will say, we had a couple different emails that came in asking some questions about what we were going to do if it was double booked. I believe they made corrections on the website, so you can't double book now. But it's up and running. I haven't heard too much this week so far. So hopefully all is well and moving along as planned. We do have some signs out, and we just found out that we do have some older signs that are out there that are a little bit confusing. So we're going to take care of that tomorrow, talking about how it's a first come, first serve for the barbecues and things. So we'll get those down and get the new signs up. But so far, it seems to be going well, and I hope that's the case for the rest of the year. Update for the RC park. Erosion bags are still in place. We're monitoring it regularly. I don't have any other updates as far as next steps with the West Good Neighbor Fund that we mentioned. And we've talked about trying to do something more permanent there or a little bit more erosion control. But we do monitor it regularly, and so far, what we did to control the last a little bit of erosion we had is still there, and serving its purpose. So,
Silas, I've got a question.
Yes.
Too. Is the removal of the track still on the table? We've talked about, and this in difference to the fact that you're newer to the position. That's been talked about for a few years now.
I haven't engaged in any sort of discussion about removing. The discussions I've been engaged in is trying to make it more usable and less erosion and contain it. Contain it to that area so that they don't go outside of the area and that the erosion doesn't get outside of the area. So that's the discussion I've been in.
Okay. Well,
involved with.
perhaps we can bring some history back into it. We'll get something on the agenda.
Okay.
Bring some history back into it and see if there's still the need to maybe switch the space that was talked about. The users of that space, represented by I think about one person, said, "Hey, we don't care if you switch it. Just give us a place to do it." And I think some of this board, and maybe all of them, I don't know, this is why we have to bring it up again, have been in favor of reutilizing that space because of where it sits, you know, the view to the river. It's a nice area that's been destroyed, and it was destroyed by a group of people using it that had no authority to do so. We'll bring up some history.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, I think the last piece I had was the binder material updates. Did I miss anything on the agenda? So the binder materials, we have some updates for you, including existing goals. I think Kristen handed them out, so you should have those packets. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get you the budget updates until it's completed, which should be very soon. So we don't really have anything updated on the budget, but I would say soon you'll have the complete budget for the next biennium. And speaking of goals, it's good to note that out of those council goals, I think there's at least 2 that we're actively working on. That being the Nature Park, Loop Trail, and Nick Shannon Park. So we're actually working through this. As far as Nature Park, one update, there is a rough design that's been made. The surveying was done. The next challenge is really trying to figure out the width of the trail in conjunction with some of the natural geology there. There's some very large rocks that we don't want to have to get into. So it's navigating that and making the best use of the space. So the engineer record for the city is actively working on that. And that's kind of where that project's at right now. So.
Cool. So we'll look forward to seeing that at some point.
Yes.
Pretty excited to see that.
Any other questions for me? If not, I'll move on to the next business order. Thank you.
I forgot it. Okay. Moving ahead, I guess I did want to say one thing in relationship to the RC track. I think there's a lot of questions about Meldrum. It's kind of a complex park. And I don't know if we just need to kind of go back and look at the master plan. We have some new members that weren't part of that and kind of look at the park as an overall and refresh our minds and kind of look at, because there's some other goals down there that we could really be working on, like the dog park and some other things, and try and get some priority. But it might be good just to kind of spend a little bit of time looking at that park and then the master plan the site plan for that. So that definitely can be added to and get that information out to people. So, okay. Moving on to business from the board, Nick Shannon Park Survey. Kristen? Yay. Okay, so it went live right after our last meeting, just a couple of days after that. So it's been out there not quite a month. And it looks like we had like 120 people so far. Is that what I'm seeing? That's great. I know. I was really excited. And it's just been in the city newsletter and on social media and then signs posted at the park, correct? That's all the advertising that we've done.
That's correct.
Okay. So here's the part about the different features,
Breakdowns.
the breakdowns on what people are liking. It's a lot of data there. In other words, they just want a park. They want everything. Which is great. I found it interesting. I got to look at this a little bit earlier this afternoon, just some of the comments. Somebody really wants a zip line. And there's several zip lines, and I was thinking that would really be a fun place to have a zip line.
I do want to point out too that there are some comments in here that are directed at other parks.
Yes.
So
true.
you might see some of those where people have
Mhm.
maybe not fully
Like-
read the sign.
Yeah, like the splash pad part. Yeah, yeah. Hit the splash pad. Yeah. So,
Yeah, zip lines, how good is our insurance?
can we have them like go from one water tank back there to another or something? I don't, yeah. Yeah, so I think part of, it's good to know that we've had 120 people and we're just in May. I think that's really shows an interest in that area. And I don't know, Kim, I know you're connected to the Oak Ridge.
Homeowner
Oh,
Association.
yeah, and I don't know if there's a way to like put something out on that to kind of get it to that neighborhood.
Absolutely. I did a preliminary survey, didn't get a lot of response, but as we get into warmer weather, there'll probably be some more interested in that. I'm not sure what the usage is exactly out of our members, but I'll be looking into that again.
Yeah, and just suggesting that they go online and like put their voices in.
Absolutely. And in this survey.
Yeah, in the
Right.
survey.
Yeah, it
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. The other thing, I know when we did the Robin Hood survey, there were some of the Parks Board members that went door to door and kind of left flyers in the immediate vicinity. That was a smaller neighborhood, but I didn't know if we want to do that.
This is Ian. I live right there. If you give me a stack of flyers, I'm very happy to pass them out.
Okay. Cool. We will make something up for you. And if anybody else wants to help you, they can do that. Okay. All right.
We're also happy to make extra signs so you can put them in your yard if you would like.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Can you send those to us so we can review
Let
them?
me start looking at them right now. Yeah. Yeah. And you're only able to do like one per email. Is that?
I can send it.
No,
I can send it to all of you. You guys just can't respond to
Right.
all.
No, I mean, when people log on to do it, to just take the survey,
You can do it one time per IP address.
okay.
So somebody could do their phone, their laptop, their iPad, and their desktop.
Okay, that's why the zip line is so important. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Kristen. That'd be helpful. I appreciate that. So any other questions on that? How much longer do we want to leave it up? Anybody have a feeling on that?
This is Ian. I'd say mid-June max, maybe.
Anybody else have a feeling for that?
So nothing is going to happen with this survey anyway until next year? Is that what we had talked about?
I think budget wise, that's what we were talking about, that next year, if we can even find the money then. So I don't think we're in a huge rush to,
So are we talking 2025 next year budget or 2026? I'm trying to figure out which next year gets confusing.
I think it's 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the money was set aside
I believe there is some money set aside.
for, yeah, for that, yeah. Equipment, right. So, okay, all right, so yeah, we have one vote for June. People want to leave it through the end of June?
I'd say leave it up through summer.
Hmm,
Too long?
maybe that might be too long.
Okay.
It's like fish, it starts to smell. So I don't know. Anybody else
So
have a feeling?
end of June, maybe?
Also, what we could do is we could do one and then dial it in a little, do another one when we get closer to purchase. Maybe put more specific ideas on it and have people vote, like we did with Meldrum.
Okay.
Might be nice.
That's true. Like do the first generation and then do the second generation.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So maybe letting it go through June. Okay, great. All right. That's what we'll do. And thank you, Ian, for handing out those flyers. That's great. The other topic that we had, and it's kind of carried over from last year, and again, I was reading the Public Works update, and they talked about the vandalism again in the bathrooms and in the parks. And especially coming into summer where we have a pretty high usage, especially down at High Rocks and Meldrum Bar. We had talked about trying to get more information about that. Ian had some thoughts on that.
Yes, this is Ian. I was wondering if we could get an overview of all the civic complaints and tickets and maintenance requests and just like graph them out and see what actually happens. And what is the biggest issue at each site, and then maybe try and split those up and tackle them one at a time. Or try and solve each problem individually. What we perceive as being most important and what actually happens the most are often not the same thing.
Does anyone else?
So we do track a lot of the requests that come in. We make work orders. We generalize vandalism and we highlight it a lot in the monthly reports just so people see that it's active. I'm not thinking it's happening every day, but it seems like it's weekly, and it could be as small as somebody writing with a Sharpie on a door that we wipe off with a special wipe that we have that looks like a disinfection wipe that takes it down. Some of the larger stuff that we've been seeing is destruction of toilets, flushometers, the components to flush the toilets. And I'm not sure why that happens or really how to control it, but I will tell you that, Nancy, we mentioned asking the chief of police to come to the meeting next month. I believe that's on his schedule.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So maybe something where you want to talk about, each of you have a question, get it to Kristen and I so that we can let the chief know what we're going to discuss. And then he could be prepared to kind of answer what the enforcement component of it, because Public Works, we don't do enforcement. We'll just clean it up and fix it as best we can. And I will say that our crew does a really good job of getting to that quickly, like next day. And I think that's the goal is if somebody does this, they're trying to make a statement. So if we can fix it quickly, that statement's kind of not available to the public, right? So that's our goal. And I think our crew does a really, really good job at accomplishing that. So I can do that, Ian. I can try to get the metrics. I don't know how good they're going to be, but it'll be a rough estimate of like hours that we spend repainting and it goes in cycles, I think, where you'll have a rash where, it'll be something that happens very regularly that's more paint oriented that you have to paint over. Seems like right now, the most recent event was somebody took the powder that you use, the hydration powders, and it looked like blood, but they basically squirted it all over the walls, and it was very easy to clean up, but somebody went in the bathroom and the shock value was there and they called the police. So that stuff happens and a police report was generated, but typically we don't generate police reports. We just record it as maintenance, and then we fix it. But I'm happy to do that. We'll look into that and get as much metrics as we can for you for the next meeting. But the June meeting, the chief of police should be here to be able to answer some questions and talk a little bit about maybe the enforcement aspect or what the community officer does.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah.
And Silas, if you're going to look at the metrics, is it possible to figure out, is there a cost to each one of those?
Oh, I'd say so, yeah. I mean, we could just basically break it down into hours and kind of tell you what the labor is.
it'd be interesting to see what the cost is. Because that might lead to what type of remedy,
Mhm.
you know, and then of course, if someone's caught, I don't know what the penalties are, but you know, it seems like they should break their piggy bank open and have to pay it back. You know? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay, so we're all agreeing to come up with a question and sending that to Silas and Kristen, like in the next month. Just so the chief has some sort of a thought on what we're doing. I think it's really important. And again, as you were talking there, I was kind of listening because I'm trying really to decide, okay, is this public works or is this enforcement? And they blend. There's this overlap, but I can, it seems like it takes work from both ends in order to kind of, identify what it is, what's happening, and what we can do about it. So I also noticed when I was looking through, as well as the report that Silas gives us on Public Works, there also is a report that the police put out for both the enforcement person and the police on what their calls are. But I couldn't tell how much of them were related to park. And how much of them were, I mean, there were a lot of them that were related just to city, but some of the violations, like were they in the parks? And so maybe the chief can really help us kind of sleuth some of that out. That would be really helpful. Okay,
Nancy, one more thought.
sure.
Gladstone is not alone
Oh,
in this plight.
yeah.
It happens everywhere. All cities deal with this, unfortunately. In my previous career, Gresham dealt with this a lot. And even when I was in parks back in the late 90s, we had vandalism a lot. And like I said, it seems like it goes in cycles, but yeah, definitely frustrating. And I think, again, our crew does a really good job at fixing stuff and trying to move through it as best they can. So, but more discussion to come for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. I know, and I totally understand that this is just part of having a park and people. But if there is something we can do to kind of correct some of the edges, that might be a good place to shoot for it. I don't know. We can always try if we all work. Any other thoughts from anyone? Questions, concerns? Okay, and you've all got your binders and you're going to update those. Keep track of all that. Okay, feel like a school teacher up here. Okay, all right. On my agenda, we are done unless we have business from the audience. Someone out there?
We did not have anyone. No.
Okay, does anyone else have anything else they want to bring up before? we adjourn?
Yeah. This is Ian. Something I noticed last year is that there were parts of the summer where kids weren't able to use some of the equipment. I think Max Patterson was where I was because everything was too hot to the touch due to direct sun. I'm wondering if in our master plan or other areas, we can think about adding some shade to some of our equipment. So over in Happy Valley, they have a really big open park, but they have big poles and triangular kind of sailcloth. It doesn't block the sun. It's not like truly sheltered, but it does lower the temperature a bit down there. They'd be relatively easy to put up and take down seasonally because anything you leave out that's cloth rots over the winter. But it seems kind of a shame to have such amazing equipment and wonderful parks and then have kids not be able to touch stuff because it's too hot. And our summers are getting hotter.
So which parks are you talking about?
The one I specifically remember was Max Patterson, which has amazing shade for a lot of the equipment, but most of the stuff on the north side doesn't get shade. And I saw a couple parents like touch the swing and then leave or like go somewhere else in the slides, any of the hard plastic stuff. And I love the splash pad there, but sitting on those benches as a parent monitoring my little kid gets rough because it's full sun, which I get. You can't have trees right there. But possibly thinking about some longer term shade solution for those things.
I think there's a process to come up with these goals for the future. I mean, there's costs associated with it, so we'd have to plan for it accordingly, but all great ideas. I would say in the next brainstorming session or whatever goes on with the Parks Advisory Board, bring that up for future goals in the next 2-year cycle. Thank you, Ian.
Okay. All right, unless we have anything else, then we are looking to adjourn. If someone would like to make that motion?
I have one more
Oh, sure.
comment. I've probably just completely forgotten what happened with this, but I received a flyer regarding metro funding for quote unquote in your area, asking for ideas, and there was a deadline fairly imminent on that, and I guess I must have just forgotten or missed the memo on the status of that.
This is Eric. I guess I can talk a little bit more about that. This is essentially kind of a community brainstorming idea generation process that Metro is hosting. So they had a meeting here in Gladstone on Saturday, but they also have meetings in Happy Valley and Oregon City. They're just open to anyone in the public who has ideas about investments that we'd like to see in parks and green spaces. And so it's just kind of a process of soliciting ideas from the community and for potential funding priorities for parks and nature. And they have online surveys as well, and so there's a lot of ways to provide ideas and feedback. It's just kind of that first step of a process that's going to be lasting about a year.
Great, thanks for illuminating that.
All right, any other questions, concerns, or I would entertain a motion to adjourn?
Bruce Hildreth, I will make a motion to adjourn.
This is Eric Butler, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bruce and seconded by Eric to adjourn the meeting. Kristen?
Yep. Kate Cornelius.
Yes.
Kim Agrimson.
Yes.
Eric Butler.
Yes.
Nancy Turner.
Yes.
Bruce Hildreth.
Yes.
Justice Mills.
Yes.
Ian Moore.
Yes.